We have a quorum, and this is the panel on Manpower meeting, and it's the appointed time. I call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is information paper issued since the last meeting. There is none. Dates of next meeting and item for discussion. Let's invite the administration to join us. When they're coming in, I'd like to tell members about the proposed agenda for the next meeting. It was scheduled on the 25th of January 2013. It's the 15th of January 2013 at 4:30 p.m. I said it was originally scheduled to take place on that day because there is going to be a policy address on the 16th of January, and the meeting times changed to the 25th of January at 9:30 in the morning to have the policy briefing. So members, you are reminded that the date of the next meeting is changed. And there are two parts to the next meeting. One is the Manpower policy briefing related to Manpower, and the second part is in relation to the Education Bureau in relation to the qualification framework. And the Labour and Welfare Bureau proposed to discuss the legislation for paternity leave in the next meeting. We have with us the Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Mr. Matthew Cheuk, and his team from the Labour and Welfare Bureau. I received a letter from Mr. Michael TIEN. He asked to discuss about the shortage of manpower in relation to elderly, homes for the elderly. I would like to have a joint meeting with the welfare panel. You will be informed of the date of the joint meeting. It may be in February because there are other labor welfare that will be discussed in February. We can discuss and decide the date on the joint meeting when we have the January meeting. So in relation to the agenda item for the next meeting, that is the one in January, are there any questions? No? Well, then we will move on to the agenda proper. One is policy study on standard working hours, and the other one is Hong Kong's occupational safety performance in the first half of 2012. Now we will first discuss standard working hours, and you will find information on paper 341/12 to 13 bracket 07, and in paragraph 16 to 17 it mentions about the creation of a post. The proposal is to create a principal labour officer supernumerary post starting from the 1st of April 2013. Is the directorate grade D1. It will last for 3 years. This post is to head the task force to be set up in relation to the standard working hours. And they will, after seeking approval from us, go to the establishment subcommittee. And after members have finished with the discussion, I will ask members if they will, in principle, support the proposal to create a post, and for the administration to go to the establishment subcommittee. So there are actually two items to be discussed under this agenda item. I will now defer to the Secretary to present to us the paper. I will spend about 10 minutes to give you an outline of the information. You may remember that in the last term of government, there are concerns in the community over long working hours, and the administration took the initiative to study on standard working hours. The administration took the initiative to do it and took the lead to do it. This is to provide a solid and objective foundation for public discussion on this issue. The last term of government admitted that this issue requires in-depth discussion. So the Labour Department undertook to conduct the study, and it's been completed. You'll find the report in front of you. The policy study was undertaken on 3 fronts. First, in relation to 12 economies where standard working hours has been implemented, we will look at what reference we can draw from them in relation to structure, system, and policies. And there are also the late analysis of the latest information in relation to working hours done collected by the Census and Statistics Department. Thirdly, I thank our colleagues for working out the 27 scenarios and conduct impact assessment on the economy under these 27 scenarios. Of course, these are just a rough estimate, but it's of reference value. And of course, the actual impact depends on the economic situation and the design of the policy, in addition to reactions of employers. So at this stage, no one knows what the impact is going to be. But at least we will have some data, some information for you to base your discussion on. We have looked at experience in other places, and we'll also look at the issues arisen from them. One of the key issues, well, for the different economies, they have a different starting point. And if, say, for example, the starting point is occupational safety, say, for example, Japan and European Union, their approach may be different. Whereas in others, it may be job creation, say, for example, Korea. In other places, they would like to strike a work-life balance. A prime example is Australia. There are also economies where this is implemented simply because overtime should be compensated, and that is in relation to the US. There are differences in the actual implementation details in these economies. Based on the information, we explored the economic impact on society. And we've raised a number of issues about the way forward. I must emphasize that there is no direction set and there is no conclusion in this policy study. This is solely to provide a solid and objective foundation for public discussion. And I will now go over with you that the general situation of working hours. Last year, the total working hours per week, when I mean local workers, I mean the part-time and full-time workers, on average, they work about 47 hours. The median is 46.6 hours. For full-time employees, the average is 49, and the median is 48 hours. Please note that the number of employees that are required to work overtime accounts for about 1/4, just about 23%. We're talking about 600,000 employees, and half of them will receive overtime allowance. Some of them are time off in lieu. For low skill and low qualification and higher age employees engaged in labor-intensive industries, they work longer hours. And in general, the overtime worked is compensated on the basis of their salary, whereas high skills, say for example, managerial employees, the contracted hours is usually shorter, and they will have to work overtime without pay. Whether it is in terms of wage or time in lieu. So we have two groups. For those labor-intensive, low-skill workers, they are compensated, whereas those that occupy a higher position, they are not compensated. On average, for longer working hours industries, they work for about 54 hours a week, and they include property management, security, food catering, transportation, RCHEs, cleaning, laundry, and retailing. And I have also said that we try to do an assessment on economic impact assessment. And we have 3 parameters. Say, for example, the number of working hours, 40, 44, and 48, 3 scenarios. And the premium at 1, 1.2, and 1.5. And also exemption, or exemption to a certain extent, or all professionals in a scenario in which all professional personnel are exempted. There are altogether 27 scenarios worked out. And if there is no exemption, so that means as long as you're an employee, you will be included. Of course, that exclude government, civil servants, and domestic work helpers. We're talking about 1.323 million or 2.38 million people. That is without exemption. We're talking about 50.6% or 91.1%. Additional wage, additional cost incurred as a result is about $800 million to from $8 billion to $55.2 billion. That of course depends on the premium, whether it's 1, 1.2 or 1.5. This shows the complexity and the across the spectrum impact. So we have to deal with it very carefully, since it's a controversial issue. We think that we have to explore 6 issues. What is the policy objective of working hours policy? 2, will it have an impact on our labor flexibility and Hong Kong's competitiveness? 3 is whether there is possible proliferation of part-timers and casual workers. Will there be more casual workers as a result? The 4th issue is the impact on business in general and SMEs in particular.
Of course, probably we have the impact on businesses in general and SMEs, and then also the modus operandi of different industries. And also legislation is the best way forward, and we have to consider that. And people want to have more time to further studies, and we have to consider OSH, etc., and these are all important. So for this term of the government, we hope that we can have a pragmatic and objective approach. So for all these issues and data, we try to put them out to the community. We hope that we can have thorough discussion, in-depth discussion in the community, and we can find a path forward. And the CE during this election had a promise that is, it will follow up on the policy study. Now we have the policy study report, and a special committee will be set up with people from 5 areas, employees, employers, that is unions, trade associations, and also academics, community leaders, and also government officials. So we have a special committee. And we are trying to prepare for this special committee. We hope in the first quarter of next year, we can finish the preparation work of the committee, and then when we have the platform, we can start work. We can in-depth explore the results of the report, try to promote a discussion so that we can forge a consensus. So these are the highlights of the report. Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank you. At the beginning, you said that members have to consider our proposal. That is, we have to set up a dedicated team in the Labour Department. We have to have a Chief Labour Officer at D1 level, a supernumerary post, so that we can support the work of the special committee. Special committee will have heavy workload. There will be a lot of consultations of various sectors, etc. We have to deal with a lot of data and statistics, etc. So we need manpower. We need to have experienced people, and the CLO should be experienced and be able to lead the team. I hope the members can support us so that we can put the proposal to LegCo. In conclusion, I would like to say that for standard working hours, SWH, actually different people have different understanding. When handling SWH, we have to be comprehensive in dealing with data and facts. And we want to set up something like SWH where to consider the implications. Thank you. Thank you, Secretary. Members, questions? 5 minutes each. Wong Kwok Hing, Tan Ka Pil, Hon Xiu Ping, Cheung Kwok Chu, Yu Kwok Kim, Kwok Wai Keung. Of course, you can still raise your hands. First, Wong Kwok Hing, please. Thank you. About the legislation for SWH, the FTU has been fighting for this for years. The government's response is willing to do that, and we welcome that. So, Secretary, you want to create a post to get manpower? Of course, we'll support it. Now, my question is this. Now, for the special committee on SWH, when will it be set up? The CE at the QA session in LegCo, he said that between December and January. But today you say this is the first quarter of 2013. Is it true that you push it somewhat backward? Can you clarify this? When will you have people to have this special committee so that we can have this committee start work? The second question, for the special committee on SWH, about this work, how long will this work be? When will it have its conclusion? So that for this term, government and also this term, LegCo, within the term of office, can really deal with this in a more concrete way. Otherwise, if we drag your feet on 4 to 5 years, then we have re-election. You know that for the next term, LegCo members, they will have certain trouble. So when will be the results of this special committee? 1 year or 1.5 years or 2 years? So they have to give his homework. Secretary, I hope to thank Mr. Wong for supporting the creation of the post. Now, we attach importance to this work. That's why we want to create a post. We hope to have a dedicated team. It's not perfunctory. So we hope to really do something concrete. So we want a direct trade officer. Now, 2 questions. First, when will the special committee be set up? Now, preparatory work is starting. The CE has appointed me to deal with this full-time with all the powers. So within the first quarter, the committee will be set up. And for getting more manpower, the manpower will be given to us on April 1st. But of course, before the people are in place, we'll still start our work. For full force of the work, of course, we need to have people in place, and then we can do it at full steam. But of course, we will not wait for upfront work. So we need to identify suitable people, and we need some time. In January, we have policy address and then the budget, and those are urgent things. But our work will not be stagnated. We hope that within the first quarter, we'll have this special committee. It can't be later than the first quarter. We have to have this platform set up. And secondly, how about the work duration of this special committee? We have to respect the special committee. Plus, we have people from 5 areas. We hope that within this term of the government, the direction should be clarified. So that for the special committee, we hope that a lot of things can be explored, and the implications for various sectors are different. Perhaps 280,000 people are affected, etc. It's not so simple. Different sectors have different nature. They have different types of work, so to ensure the well-being of the grassroots workers. So we have different factors. We really need some time. So when we start up, we need to have a direction. We have to do something pragmatic. So please give us some time. Actually, our transparency will be very high. We will report to this panel from time to time. And Mr. Chairman, I request that the administration, say within half a year or 1 year, after setting up this special committee, give us initial homework. Otherwise, you drag your feet until towards the end of the term of the government, it will not do. You must give us initial homework, and why is it that is important? And for example, for the tram company, now for OT rates, say it's 1.5 times. But in recent years, they have changed OT rates. See, if the working years is less than 10 years, it's 1.25. It's exploitation of the workers and the drivers. So for the workers, SWH legislation is urgent. It cannot be delayed because many reasonable practices of OT rates, 1.5 times, can be changed from the employers because they make use of the void, because at present there is no legislation and the workers are exploited. Hope that the special committee should really do something concrete initially within half a year or a year. So he has to give some homework. I think the Secretary has registered this point, so that we hope to have some sort of results speedily. Mr. Tan Ka-pil, thank you. Because we support the creation of the post. Of course, the Secretary can give us an account about the requirements of the person for this post. Perhaps the person has to lobby the business sector for legislation. Perhaps this is very important. That this person should be able to liaise with the business sector, etc. So please give us the characteristics of this person. Secondly, for SWH, for the whole discussion, the community has 2 kinds of consensus. First, there are long working hours for Hong Kong people. Second, for the actual SWH, and perhaps for actual working hours, people may have different figures. But for OT pay, people also have a consensus. So with these 2 kinds of consensus, the administration should do something. First, I think the major problem is that half of the people for OT are not compensated. So they give actually the deficit of $8 billion for the employers, you can say. At least 8 billion, perhaps more than 50 billion. We have to solve this problem. Perhaps the special committee will just give a basket of recommendations after 3 years. It will not do. We do not need 3 years. So the second question is, how do we solve the problem of 2 kinds of consensus, long working hours and OT pay, especially for these 3 years? Of course, the special committee may have its work, and the Labor Department Labour and Welfare Bureau will have its own work. Now, for minimum wage, we have to make reference to that. For minimum wage and SWH, people say that minimum wage issues are relatively easier. The committee have a sympathy towards it. Still, we need legislation because minimum wage campaigns would not work. So I give 3 years for the special committee to do its work. Perhaps the SWH campaign can do, but during a campaign it will not work. So legislation is the best direction. Hope that the Labour Department will just give the ball to the special committee. Within the 3 years, we still have to work. Now for first A, B, C, D, E for the key issues. Of course, you can have a levying of sales tax, universal retirement protection, etc. All these issues touch upon these 5 points. So for these 3 years, what can the Labour Department do or the Labour and Welfare Bureau do? Perhaps after legislation, you still have to do something to set the direction. I would like to thank Mr. Tang for his question. Now for the candidates of the person. Well, the person at this post has to be representative, and the person has to have a good intention and motivation, because he has to have influence among the various sectors. He has to serve as a bridge. So we need some time to identify the candidates. Some people may be suitable, but they might be interested to do something about this. And secondly, about long working hours. How do we deal with that? As I said at the beginning, we agree that the Hong Kong workers have long working hours. So we have to tackle this problem. And that's why we have this report as a basis. As for the ways to go about it, whether we need legislating or other ways, we really need a consensus so the special committee can deal with this. And secondly, Mr. Tang mentioned whether we can have some sort of a SWH campaign, just like minimum wage. Yes, we can consider that at the level of the special committee. It is very open about this. We may have to do things one after another. Whether the Labour Department or the Labour and Welfare Bureau, we have to have close liaison with the special committee. Okay, you have a special committee. We have to respect the special committee. We have participation from community representatives and also with the officials. So the special committee is representative. We have this platform, and through this platform, we have to promote policies which can be well accepted by the community. We don't have to wait for everything. Perhaps the special committee can divide its work into several stages. Perhaps we explore legislation, and on the other hand, at the same time, we explore other ways which can be done also. So at this stage, we adopt an open attitude. The aim is just single. We have to be pragmatic. We have to do something which is well accepted by the community. This is very important. Thank you.
So, perhaps, Mr. But if you have anything else to say, you can line up again. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Just now, the Secretary has briefly gone over the report of 300 pages. He said that there is no preset direction, and we are disappointed. That is the lack of preset direction from the perspective of a labor union. In Chapter 10, it talks about the economic impact with the implementation of the standard working hours, and it says that the extra cost incurred may be $8 billion to $55.2 billion. I've gone over this part. I want to know, why haven't you done a quantitative social cost assessment? The implementation of standard working hours may have an impact on wages, but at the same time, it may have a positive impact on social cost. Say, for example, occupational health and safety, and also good family life. In the report, only half a chapter is dedicated to OSH. There is no mention about good family relationship. I want to know why. Why haven't you done any study to give us some information in this regard? You talk about impact on SMEs. If you refer to chapter 9, paragraph 36, for SMEs, the average working hours is about 45.8 hours, which is shorter than the average, which is 47. And some labor unions are talking about 47 or 48 hours. The impact on SME is very low. I don't want this report to mislead the community into thinking that the impact on SME will be huge. Just now you mentioned about the creation of a post, and the post will be responsible for the special committee. Can you give me information about the issues I've raised? Can the committee provide more information to us in the future? This report may be 300 pages, but there are missing information. Secretary, first, a social cost. On my left-hand side, we have Assistant Commissioner for Labour, Mr. Nicholas Chan, and also Ms. Reddy Ng, Principal Economist. We try to be as balanced as possible. We set out the pros and cons. Just now you mentioned about work-life balance and good family life and social cost. It's difficult to find data in these areas. So, for example, if it's raised to a certain level, it will reduce the number of accidents. It's difficult, but when it comes to economic impact, it can be worked out from a set of data, whereas there are other issues can't really be quantified. But of course, when it comes to work-life balance, and the time for rest and time for furthering their studies, definitely they will have more time in this regard. Ms. Ng, let me first answer in relation to SMEs. I'd like to point out that the average working hours for SMEs is slightly lower. When we work out the economic implications, for the industry there is a one average working hours, and we also take into account the level of wages, which will have an impact on the on additional cost. The reason why there is a slightly shorter working hours for SMEs, because most SMEs engage in import-export and similar industries that don't require them to work long hours. There are on average fewer SMEs in long working hour industry, say for example property management. When we work out the cost, we don't just look at the length of working hours, we also look at the wages to work out the impact, and we on top of that take into account whether the industry has been giving compensated working hours. So for example, if they are already giving a premium of 1.5, then the impact of additional cost will be lower than an industry that is only giving a premium of 1. We've worked out 27 scenarios because we know that there is a wide range. In some scenarios, the impact is small. It depends on how we set the standard working hours and the supporting measures in place. Mr. Peter Chung, I agree with my colleagues. Yes, it's a balanced approach. There are 12 economies, you studied them, you obtained some information, but it seems that there is not much ink on the positive impact of standard working hours on the community, on society, or workers. You have spilled a lot of ink on the negative impact. In this regard, you need a more balanced approach. We have the duty to vet the proposal of a creation of a post. This post is dedicated to serving the special committee, but we have very little information on the committee. Not that I want to know who will be sitting in the committee. I want to know the objective of this committee. Is it to go ahead with the standard working hours or not to? Well, perhaps from the composition you know whether they would like to go ahead. No, I only see one line about the special committee. I fail to see the objective of the committee. Secretary. As the CE said in his manifesto, it is to follow up on the policy study, to explore a way forward. They have a very important task. Of course, one of the areas they need to explore is whether to legislate for this, and if not, how do we deal with long working hours? This is an important issue. I agree with some members that the stance or attitude of the administration is very important. If the administration says that we don't have a stance, I think it means trouble. You spend a lot of money on it, and then it will simply be forgotten. Starting from 2000, we've been talking about it, and it's been over 10 years. You now set up the special committee. You seek funding approval for 3 years, $5 million. Well, assume that it will be completed in 3 years. I don't even know whether that can be done. But of course, I would like something concrete in maybe a year or two's time. We think that if the special committee is established for the legislation on standard working hours, of course we will give the approval immediately. The legislation itself does not necessarily tip towards workers. We know that there should be a balance. It should be acceptable to employers as well. Can the Secretary tell us that? Well, we spend over $1 million on the committee every year. Is it going to take the path of the statutory minimum wage? Secretary, what is the stance of the administration? Do they incline towards legislation? And would you please answer the first question? Can you repeat it, please? Positive impact is because you don't paint. You only paint a dim light on it. It's not the case that we are glossing over the positive impact and focusing on the adverse impact. Well, look at the leaflet, because members of the public will only read the leaflets. And on page 6, you'll find 6 points pro and 6 points con. Do you have the leaflet? This is just a thin leaflet, so we are very fair. 7 advantages and 7 disadvantages. So it's balanced. We wanted to obtain information from other economies, to draw a reference from them. We're serious. We're not just going through the motions. Otherwise, we won't do this policy study. Back to your question. The attitude of the administration is serious and positive. This is not a policy that glosses over the issue. No, Mr. Peter Cheung's question is not whether you are serious or not. Do you incline towards legislation or not? What is your stance? Legislation or not? The administration will have to respect the work of the special committee. They are tasked to explore the way forward. Can I understand it this way? Last time when the Finance Committee endorsed the OALA, the OH living allowance, when we approve the creation of posts or the funding approval of posts, it's taken that we approve the scheme. So is it the case that, so by the same token, we approve the funding approval for this creation of post, then it's taken that you will legislate? Well, maybe it should be put this way. You give us the manpower, we will actively take forward the to promote legislation. Without the chief labor officer, we cannot take this forward at full steam. Well, members, please note that this is just to promote the study on legislation. So we have not heard anything about the destination, which is legislation. Mr. Cheuk-yan, the standard working hours issue is controversial. Can the secretary give me more information? Because you only talk about the fact that in the first quarter, a special committee will be set up. It will comprise of representatives from the academic, the employers, group employees, etc. But what can I have? Can we have more information on the work of this committee? Standard working hours. There are only 3 words, but underneath it is a myriad of issues which are rather complicated. Different people may have a different concept on standard working hours. So how can you, through your work, forge a consensus on the concept of standard working hours? Secretary, I thank the members for raising 3 important issues. First, in the coming few quarters, apart from identifying suitable candidates, we will also work on the terms of reference. The objective of the committee is to take forward the studies and to decide whether there will be legislation, and if so, how it's designed. If not, how do we deal with the issue of long working hours? That is the key issue that the special committee should handle. And it's not just with the involvement of the administration, with the community, with the labor sector, and also academia as well. Yes, this issue is complex. Part of the work of the committee is education and publicity. And they will do a lot of education and publicity work in order to forge a consensus. There will be a lot of work lined up for them. The Labour Department will take up these work because these tasks, because the committee can't themselves go out and publicize this issue. Yes, there are different interpretations on standard working hours. In the process of discussion, a consensus can be forged. An informed discussion is very important. And we have data, we have the statistics in the report. There are also information about overseas experience, what we need to pay attention to, what are the pros and cons.
Mr. Yu, just now the Secretary said that you make reference to overseas experience. Do you have a timeline if you make reference to overseas experience? We look at the present situation, and then we have a conclusion. So that you can set your objective as to when you have the results, etc. perhaps 2 years, 3 years, 10 years. Mr. Yip, as we said, that in this term of the government, we need to take a path of this issue. And in the process, for this report is a good starting point. We don't have to start from zero, because we make reference to 12 economies. Actually, you can talk to Mr. Chan, economic officer, etc., and then we can really have a lot of data for reference. Yes, a LegCo member from the FTU. The secretary said that he takes an open attitude. Actually, it's quite chilling. The secretary said that CE has appointed the secretary to deal with this, but the secretary said that he still takes an open attitude. We cannot identify with this. Actually, in the platform of the CE, he said that the special committee is to follow up on the proposal of the present government, including community leaders, academics, etc. But the special committee is to jointly promote the legislation for SWH. So its efforts is to go along the routes of legislation. It's not to study whether there should be legislation. So I'm worried about this. And actually my colleagues are also quite worried. Actually, seems that you gave negative data or figures. At the outset, the secretary said that you want to study the economy, also the response of the employers, etc. But do you really appreciate the plight of the employees? Now, the employers just look at figures. They see how much money, in addition, is needed. But how about the work of the employees? Perhaps you cannot quantify that. But still, you have some indicators as to how you can quantify the work. Now, with the long working hours, how would that affect the work of the employees? Perhaps they taken ill, etc. But the report doesn't mention that. Now, is it true that the workers are really being exploited by the bosses? I think the officials really have to have a heart to appreciate the plight of the workers. Well, the report mentioned the 6 long working hours sectors. I have some questions on that. How about the clerical workers? How about the banking or accounting work? Those people have long working hours. Why is it that they are not mentioned? Is it that there are some problems with records of working hours so that they cannot be quantified? Is it true that the people just have rumors about the long working hours of these sectors? So why is it that these sectors are not mentioned? It's true that the report was not comprehensive, that you couldn't get hold of certain figures or data, so that the white-collar workers or the clerical workers are not mentioned here for long working hour sectors. I hope that the Secretary can answer this. I have to stress this. The report, of course, says that long working hours are a problem and we have to tackle this in Hong Kong. So at the outset, we mentioned this in the report. So we spent a long time studying the report, and we studied data from the 12 economies. And for our public pamphlets, we mentioned 6 advantages or 7 advantages or 7 disadvantages. And the report is forthcoming and frank about the problems to be analyzed and the problems to be dealt with. So the report is well-intentioned. It's not a cover-up. As secretary, you have to reassure the workers. If people interview you further, you say that you actively move along legislation. Well, we are very active in following on that. Now, for the 6 long-working hour sectors, Ms. Redding can elaborate on that. Ms. Redding, especially about white-collar clerical workers or banking workers. I would like to thank Mr. Kwok for the question. Now, for the report for Appendix 4. Now, talk about the age, the work type, qualifications, and the different occupations, etc. Whether we're talking about SMEs or big enterprises, the spread of working hours, the people, the lower quartile, upper quartile, and the 90% mark, etc. So we have all these figures. So if Mr. Kwok wants to talk about the financial, and insurance, to look at full-time workers, let's not talk about part-timers. For finance and the insurance, for the median, is 44.7. Chinese version page 239. But for whole of Hong Kong is 48. Insurance and finance is lower in terms of median figure. But clerks is 44.3. If you look at the spread and the distribution, if you look at 54 hours for long working hours, they will not be included in the list. But for individual occupations, they are not that even. So perhaps it is approaching the 90% mark. So anyway, for this report, this is the initial report. This is the first time that we have this kind of detailed figures, this comprehensive picture. But for the next time, we will be more focused, and we'll talk about the industries. Perhaps you're talking about certain work types in certain industries. We don't have this breakdown at present. But if you look at whether certain issues or occupations are exempted, we will be able to deal with that in future. Now, time is running out. Kenneth Leung, Sin Chung Kai, Leung Chi Chun, Kwok Ka-kee, Leung Kwok Hong, and Michael TIEN. Well, they still have 5 minutes each. But please give more time for the Secretary to give answers. For the Secretary's answers, you know his attitude, and then you can do comments. And Mr. Kenneth Leung, Secretary, for the special committees, you have officials, unions, employers, academics, and community leaders. Why is it that you don't have professionals? Professionals are important. We are not employers, we are not employees. In your report, you mentioned a lot of countries about professional sectors. Sometimes they are exempted in one sweep. Now, for the professional sector, is very complex. Some people may support SWH, some people may oppose SWH, but some people are quite open. For example, how do we calculate working hours for professionals? When our brain is working, actually, working hours start. It's not by punching cards. So professionals should be included in the special committee. That's the first point. Secondly, about working hours, I can say that for the professional commons, for May and June at the accounting sector, it carried out the detailed survey. For the accounting sector, during the peak season, every week, the working hours about 60 hours. Please take note of this. Thank you. Secretary, now for professionals, of course, in taking up people on the special committee, of course, we consider that certain professions are not mentioned because the number of people are limited. I'm sure that the special committee may set up task forces to look at professionals. Perhaps the the chairman or the heads of certain professional associations will be invited to put their heads together. Perhaps a working group, a task force may be set up to deal with professionals, and then there will be a good division of labor. So surely we'll take notes of this. And for working hours, of course, we'll take notes of that, especially 60 hours. Thank you. Ms. Ng, anything to add about the accounting sector? About the CNSD? They do not have this kind of detailed breakdown. Of course, if need be, for collection of data, of course, we'll tie in with that. Now, if you want to take that seriously, it's not just a professional sector. In general, if you look at different professions, accountants, doctors, especially doctors or engineers, frontline professionals at construction sites, you really have to set up some sort of a task force. Would you please do not simplify this complex issue? Secretary, you register that. Mr. Sin, before Mr. Sin talks, perhaps the Secretary can mention the pamphlet case, 7 disadvantages and 7 advantages. Please give that to us so that we can do some photocopies. I'm talking about the pamphlets. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. 2 opinions and 1 question. No. The Democratic Party will support the creation of the post. Then you have the manpower to deal with the work of the special committee. Paragraph 15F. I have a question. Is legislation the best way forward? The government doesn't have a clear direction. I understand that. But I have a question. How about the timetable of your work? Of course, I hope that the early part of the term of the LegCo office, you can submit recommendations. Now, from the special committee to drafting of legislation to scrutiny of the legislation, how long will the time be? Do you have a timetable? Of course, you can say that there's no decision yet on legislation, but if you have legislation, okay, hypothetical, if there's consensus, it does not 100%, but if there is a mainstream view for legislation, what's the timetable? What's the shortest span and what's the longest time? When will you be able to draft the bill or the legislation? Okay, you have got the post, so when will be the time?
This is a big assumption, and it's difficult because there should first be a consensus in the committee and also a consensus forged in the community. And that is this. And if it's decided that legislation is the way forward, then we will draft the legislation. And we'll also work on their different areas. Say, for example, exemption. Are they only going to apply to professionals? Where do we draw the line? And is it to be done by way of wage level or the types of work? There are many different issues. I hope the administration is not going to drag its feet until the time is up, until, well, the end of the legislative term, and then you say, well, they have no time. You have to stick to a timetable. 4 years is a short time. So do you have an objective? Do you have a goal? Do you have a timetable? Because when the 4 years is up, you say we have no time. And in 2016, you say, well, we have no time, and then we're going to have a new CE, and there is going to be another 5 years. We're not very good at filibustering, and we don't know how to filibuster. And I can definitely tell you that we are pragmatic, and that's our goal. Now, well, what I'm afraid is that you're doing a lot of pragmatic work and so much pragmatic work that in the end you're dragging your feet. We can't make a decision for the committee before it's set up. That means because in this way we don't respect the committee. Then did you tell the committee that should there be legislation, the committee should finish its work within such a time? Will there be a timetable for the committee to make a decision? Well, hopefully we will set up the platform in the first quarter of next year, then they will start the work. course, there will be discussion in the committee, and the administration will take an active role. Hopefully, within their term, they will set the direction. To work on the direction, will you give the committee a timetable? To give them an idea, when you work out, when you have a consensus, then you will work on the legislative drafting, and that will be submitted to the LegCo. Say the LegCo will take a year to scrutinize the legislation. Will the committee be given a timetable? As I've said that the first quarter there will be preparation for the committee. We've heard you, and we will take your comments back to see if we can incorporate a timeline for the committee. I will consider that. Mr. Leung Chi-Chiang. Thank you. I have a slightly different view from some members. In relation to legislating for standard working hours, the policy study, back in 2000, there was a motion debate in the Council urging the administration to do it. I'm new to the Council. I see there are good intentions on the part of the administration. They've come up with a policy study of hundreds of pages. So I do believe that there is sincerity on the part of the administration. But I agree with other members. Well, if you just want to study it, you can come up with 4 or 5 policy study reports. Some members think that study itself is not enough. This committee will be under your leadership, Secretary. If you can report your work regularly to the LegCo, or you come up with something concrete before the end of the 4-year term. Can you maybe give us some midterm report to show us that apart from studying the issue, there is actually some progress? On the issue itself, well, we all have an experience. For statutory minimum wage, once it's legislated, then some companies change the terms of employment to self-employment. A similar approach may be adopted. Say professionals, they work over 10 hours a day. If they are changed to self-employment, then there will be no problem with that. We're working for over 10 hours. I think the administration or this committee should take this into consideration. Should there be legislation? Is there a way to plug this loophole so that employers cannot fiddle with the system to circumvent the standard working hours requirements? Some scholars talked about a possible increase in operating costs with the introduction of standard working hours. You said that, the increase in cost may range from $8 billion to $55.2 billion. The scholars, drawing reference from overseas, said that that it may take several years to implement the standard working hours instead of just one-off. You will go with the easy areas first. This may be an appropriate approach. Yes, and the member is very enlightening. Secretary, don't say that the members' words are really enlightening as soon as you hear that he has confidence in you. Once this committee is set up, well, since it is very transparent, because the information are easily known to the community, so we will have constant liaison with you and regular communications with you. In relation to the interim report, well, we will take that into consideration, but the most important thing is to kickstart the work of the committee, and of course these issues will be discussed. And on whether there's a possibility of self-employment, and this may be a possible impact. There may be a possible proliferation of part-timers and casual workers. We will also look at possible solutions to address and plug these issues and plug these loopholes. In Korea, it is implemented in stages. For SMEs, there is an exemption period of 6 years. And even now, if you employ less than 3 people, you are exempted completely. Can it be applied in Hong Kong? Of course, there are different situations in different countries. We will have to take into account Hong Kong's special situation before we design the system. Mr. Raymond Chan, I have a comment and a question. Just now, the Secretary said that there is no preconceived stance of the administration. Some members said that, well, they're disappointed with no preset direction. I think there is a preconceived stance, which is to drag their feet. Mr. Shin Chung-kai mentioned about the administration dragging its feet. When I think that I find most of the words are there is no consensus, it's controversial. The New Territories Northeast development is controversial. Did you come up with a leaflet of 7 advantages and 7 disadvantages? Did you have an API saying that the administration is now actively pursuing the cause of legislating for standard working hours? No. In 15F, is legislation the best way forward? It says long working hours is an issue to be addressed. However, statutory SWH regime should not be regarded as a panacea for resolving all long working hours related problems. You can just fill in the blank. It can be universal suffrage. It can be discrimination ordinance. So there is a preconceived stance. Okay, let's assume that there is no preset direction. You said there are 6 industries where workers will have to work long hours. So before legislating for standard working hours, if there is one, what measures do you have to tackle that? Just now, Mr. Tang Ka-pil asked about studies. Well, assuming that there is no special committee, you still have to do something. Because without standard working hours, and there is a serious problem of long working hours, what measures will the administration launch to address these problems? We have to improve the welfare of employees. But one part of it is for the employer to improve the employment condition, the terms of employment for the employee. Before any labor policy, there should be a consensus. That is the case since the war. Because if you steamroll ahead, it will backfire. It may be a difficult way, but in the end, we can forge a consensus. It's just like the statutory minimum wage. But I know that the standard working hours is a more complicated issue. But still, we can forge a consensus for a statutory minimum wage after a long time, and this serves as a very good experience. Of course, we have to protect the rights of employees, but we have to take into account how much society and employers can take. We are actually in the same boat. Harmony is important. While we are exploring whether we legislate, and on the other hand, we have hundreds of thousands of workers working long hours. We've now sent a message to the society. There are 6 industries where employees are working long hours. We have seen a change in the culture in these industries. For long working industries, they are mostly from low-skilled. They're mostly non-skilled workers or low-skilled workers, but they work overtime compensated, whereas employees with higher skills and professionals, they work overtime uncompensated. The SMW is there. The hours worked in addition will be paid in accordance with the wage. So when the employee clock in, you will have to start paying. So when one works overtime, there is a premium of a minimum of 1. There is a basic protection. But the committee needs to explore what more can we do to improve the work conditions before there is legislation. Should there be one? I don't think the Secretary is answering my question, but the time's up. Well, I think, Secretary, you should get Mr. Raymond Chan to be the voiceover of your API. He's got a lovely voice. Dr. Kwok Kaki is not here. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Leung Chen-ying said in his manifesto, I've got a manifesto on page 11, under employment rights, clause 15, to follow up on a survey in relation to standard working hours, to set up a special committee with representatives from the academia, with employees and an employer group, and to work on community leaders, labor unions, and employees associations, and to work on studying. So they will work on the study to promote standard working hours, and then they will map out their work, and then the last one is only sophistry, is to be concerned with labor's work conditions. He says here in the manifesto that he is going for legislation, but now the Secretary said that they will study on it. The Labour Advisory Council should give an approval before legislation can move forward. I can't find it in the basic law. Can you tell me where I can find a Labour Advisory board in the basic law? I can't. That's why I filibuster.
Now about the LAB, is it true that if the LAB doesn't agree with what you suggest, you will not go ahead with SWH? Can you answer me? You say that is a well-established practice. Okay, you have a suggestion, yes or no? Please do not waste my time. I've been interacting with you for so many times. Please give a direct answer. Is it true that we have to need the consent of the LAB? Now for SWH direction. Now, Mr. Chairman, now please do not answer. Now for the special committee. Actually, it's just serving the imperial emperor, okay? The special committee's views put to the emperor. See whether, I'm not sure whether he will be the CE. The CE will make a decision. according to the legal concept, just like the minimum wage commission, the CE actually they don't have to listen to the view of the commission. You were just making reference to it. Are you misleading the public? Are you telling us if the employers do not agree, then we don't have a good result? Is it what you are saying? So what's the use of administration of CY Leung? Mr. Leung has asked whether you have to get the consent of a special committee before you go ahead. Well, special committee is not enough. You talk about LAB. How about special committee and LAB? It's true that if the special committee says yes, it's true that the LAB also has to say yes. Now, for labor policy, from the post-war period up to now, we have had this practice. Now, the young people are just raising the colonial flags. You say it's wrong. What era are we in? In the past, we didn't have the basic law. The basic law provides for our rights. That's the source of our rights. And it delineates our powers. And it delineates the relationship of subordination. But the Labour Advisory Board may be able to block the Special Committee of the CE. Are you saying that you are trying to teach the CY Leung to do something? How about well-established practice? Well, the Special Committee may agree to that. Still, it may not work. Are you what you are saying? Are you saying these sort of things? Perhaps you can say that you raise the wage $33 per hour is not due. And it's true that you have to go through the LAB. I've been very patient with you. Are you saying that we have the LAB? LAB really have the say that there is disagreement between employers and employees. What should we do? Now, Secretary, about SWH. The most important thing, the most important role is the work of the special committee. But just now you said that if there is no agreement by the employers, then there's no good result. I said that for labor policy, we must have a consensus. Then we can have smooth implementation. Mr. Michael TIEN. Now, there are two kinds of voices in society. One is about working hours. The other is about righteousness. That is, there is no pay for OT. Another thing is work-life balance. You talk about work-life balance. Perhaps the overall consideration is what? Well, for SWH, how can you solve the problem? Unless you talk about maximum working hours. In our debate, some colleagues mixed up maximum working hours and standard working hours, so the objective is not very clear. We talk about righteousness or justice. I think the employment contracts are quite lax in this. Perhaps my understanding is wrong. Sometimes they have a verbal agreement. So this month I give you $6,000, and then there is no stipulation about working hours or OT work. It's really unacceptable. Now, the overall principle is not to stipulate working hours. So we have to have a good relationship between employers and employees so that we can have something legitimate. Okay, you have the clear working hours, and beyond the working hours, then the employees may have the decision to say no. Perhaps he wants to strike a work-life balance. He can make a decision. And if the employers abuse his, and if the employers fire the employees as a result, then you can make representation to the Labour Department. Now, if you strengthen the employment contracts, then to a certain extent you solve a lot of problems. We are talking about the free market, and the unemployment rate is rather low. There are a lot of vacancies. You really can't hire people. If the work is having long working hours, then people will not be attracted to it. We have free markets. You will not allow the employers to abuse it. If you have SWH, you can make reference to overseas jurisdictions. They have a lot of exemptions for these sort of factors or those factors. So what we have at the end? So I have a question for the whole discussion. What is the objective? Is it about justice? Is it about work-life balance? If we talk about work-life balance, then you should talk about maximum working hours. If you talk about justice, okay, you should figure out the employment contracts. You can have clear provisions. Then the employers will not make excuses to fire the employees because the employees do not want to work OT, etc., or there is uncompensated OT, etc. So there should be clear stipulations in the employment contracts. So, Secretary, what's the nature of the problem? Secretary, is it work-life balance or justice? Mr. Tian has brought out the complexity of the issues. Different people have different perspectives of the same issue. Some people talk about maximum working hours. This from the angle of OSH, occupational safety and health. So there should be some maximum working hours. However, some people say that well, if you work more, you should get more. There should be OT rates, etc. So that's the complexity of the issue. The Special Committee on SWH will have to explore these issues one by one. Then we can figure out the way forward out of this labyrinth. About the employment contracts, the employment ordinance does not have this sort of stipulations. It's just kind of agreement. If we have a good employer through the contracts, there are provisions set, say the OT rates, etc. Is set out clearly, then there's good protection. If the employers do not pay, then it's in breach of the employment ordinance. Why is it that this will not be the first step? Enhancement of the employment ordinance, the EO. Well, this may be limited legislation. Perhaps the Special Committee can explore this. Now, this sort of thing is separate from the SWH. We have to enhance the EO. We have to spell out the rights of the employees clearly. If the committee thinks that work-life balance is most important, then on top of that, you can have the maximum working hours. But SWH is neither here nor there. Okay. Mr. Cheuk-yan Puk. Now for SWH, for the promotion of it, we have to allay the concerns of the employers to solve their problems. I can feel that the opposition of the employers is much stronger than that for minimum wage. We have to solve the problems. Apart from the rising wage costs, we have to ensure that they have enough manpower, especially for unexpected work or very important work. If the employers do not cooperate, then you have policy or legislation, they have their own strategies. So from my experience, some employers to try to save OT work. Say for Japan, the supervisors and the managers are not stipulated by OT work, so they are managers in name. So they are promoted, but actually they change the title, they lost rules OT rates. For England, Japan, etc., well, they lose manpower, so the employers change people's titles and then they evade certain issues. They raise restrictions. Now, so if we have SWH, perhaps some management will promote certain people indiscriminately. So the government has to consider all these loopholes. And whether LAB has to have its final say, I'm not sure. But the cooperation of the employers is very important. About exemption, for different jurisdictions have different kinds of exemptions. Some exempt senior staff, some exempt monthly paid people, some exempt people because of work type. So in Hong Kong, we have to decide on our criteria. The issue is very complex. We should not simplify that by using a slogan. We have to be very careful. The different jurisdictions have this kind of practice. There may be some problems, loopholes. Hope that our government really can come up with a sound system. The important thing is to solve people's actual problems. Secretary, I'd like to thank Mr. Chan. Yes, your analysis is very good. We have to be very cautious in dealing with all sorts of problems. We have to tackle the problem of long working hours, and we have to talk about compliance with the law. We have to talk about the ramifications of compliance with the law. The special committee has to amass opinions so that we should set a good policy, and the special committee should really deliberate on this. But it's very hard for us to have a second round because we have another agenda item. Now, finally, I have a question about SWH, for Labour Party and the Confederation of Trade Unions. My question is very simple. Secretary, can you give us a simple answer? Is it that CY Leung is cheating the election committee members and Hong Kong people? His platform talks about legislation for SWH. Now you give the responsibility to the special committee. You say that within the term of office, it is to clarify direction. It's true that the election manifesto of CY Leung is cheating people. So integrity is not just about illegal structures. His integrity is also about SWH. CY Leung is not cheating me because I have not believed in him. Actually, you are cheating FTU. They are election committee members. Are you cheating Hong Kong people? Secretary, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to reiterate that the administration is very serious in dealing with this problem of SWH. People are concerned, and we have to tackle this problem of long working hours. So the special committee will do the work. Yes, you have repeated that, but do you admit that what you are saying is different from what the election manifesto of CY Leung is saying? About his election manifesto, actually he's cheating people, or perhaps you're giving this discount to what he has said. Either one is true. Okay, you give the work to the special committee, you seek a consensus to see whether we should have legislation. You set a direction within the term of office. Is it true that is different from promoting legislation for SWH in the election manifesto of CY Leung? Is it true that you are distorting his election manifesto? Are you doing something which makes CY Leung cheat people? Not really. Mr. Chairman, in this election manifesto, the CE said that he's studying the matter, okay? We should study the matter. Now we have the blueprint, we have a platform, we have a report, we have policy study. Our sincerity is here. We really should give more time for people to promote the work.
But you have to make it clear, this is just to study the implementation of standard working hours legislation. If that is the case, then the setting up of the special committee is not to see if there is consensus, it's to look into legislation for it. I hear that members don't really want to get in the way with the creation of posts. But for the Labour Party and the CTU, if the special committee is like what you've said, then I will object to the creation of the post. Because I don't know. This post may not be there for legislation. It may just be used for filibustering and to drag feet. For the statutory minimum wage, you've been filibustering for 12 years. And if we have to wait for this year, then it's a complete 12 years. Maybe not you, but your predecessor, but it's still filibustering. So I'd like to hear from you. Can you maybe you will give me a written answer? Is the committee there to take forward legislation, or is there only to study whether there is consensus, because they are as different as night from day? Give me a clear answer. Secretary, would you like to give me an answer today, or you will give me a written reply? Or when you go, you prefer to set everything out when you go to the establishment committee? This government is very serious in taking forward the policy study. It will to study the implementation. We need consensus whether about the design, whether there should be any exemption. Secretary, this is where we're different. There is always a qualifier, a proviso. You started off quite well. You adjusted your words to make it sound like it's not cheating us to study to take forward the legislation. But there is a but. If his team is not cheating Hong Kong people, say for example, if I run for the post of the chief executive, I will have to make good what I say in my manifesto. And if in the manifesto I said it is to take forward legislation, then I don't care whether there is a consensus. I will take it forward so that there will be consensus instead of waiting for consensus. Well, I will stick to my 5-minute rule. Secretary, you know my stance. Well, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung has raised his hand. I will have to let him speak. Hopefully we can finish this agenda item as soon as possible. Thank you. Well, I'm also very concerned that he will have his way when using sophistry. He said to study. What will come later? We only have maybe a bunch of figures, statistics, and the conclusion is to forge consensus, which is not there, and then it's just forgotten. And if the administration wants to create a post, can they tell us clearly the task, which is to build a basic option for us to discuss it, and not to study and take it forward? You have to have a proposal for it to be taken forward. So can I be told clearly that that will be one of the duties? Otherwise, all the work done will be wasted. First, can I get an undertaking that in the end there will be a conclusive proposal for our discussion? Secretary, I've said it earlier, the objective of the committee is to find a solution, find an option. So is there a timetable? We don't even have the first meeting. So you have to set the time, a year perhaps. It will take a year for them to come up with a proposal for us to discussion. And if you just say, well, we don't know how long it will take because they haven't had the first meeting yet. No, I don't accept that. I can't set the milestones before the committee is set up. We have to give it time to focus on the work. But very, very often when it comes to surveys, it will have to be completed in 3 or 4 months. You will have to give them the time and then the committee will work on it. If there is no deadline, then the committee will drag its feet. Secretary, I said very clearly that we'll have to wait for the committee to start its work, and then we will discuss on the roadmap timetable. It's not as simple as the 3 words, standard working hours. We have to consider exemption where we draw the line, whether it's by types of work or by wage level. You need to have a plan. Say 3 months for the study and 4 months for the report, and then in a certain number of months you will come to the LegCo. You have to be clarified. You can't just leave it hanging in the air, and you can't just say that well it's for the committee to decide. I think you may ask the same question by the Finance Committee. I have repeatedly said in answer to members' questions, we hope that the work will be finished before the end of the term of the Legislative Council. So we're talking about 4 years. I think 4 months is long, let alone 4 years. Okay, I will make concession. Can you, in the first first meeting, discuss the roadmap and timetable, and then make public the information. Okay, you say you should respect the committee. I will give you an opportunity. Can they discuss the work timetable and the roadmap in the first meeting and let us know? If you say that, well, it would take a year for them to study, and then at least give us an opportunity or to object. We need to know about your progress and your directions. Mr. Leung has made a concession. He asked for a timetable after the first meeting. Yes, as I said, that as soon as the committee is set up, then they will discuss it. There are representatives from labor unions. The Secretariat will set the agenda, and it should be on the agenda, the timetable and the roadmap. And then ask the committee to comment on it, and then there will be a conclusion. Can it be done in this way? I think the Secretary has heard you. Even if you ask him more, he'll say that he will consider it. I think that this is the end of this item. Now, well, I have already made clear my stance in relation to the proposal to create posts, but I've heard from members that in principle they support the administration's proposal to go to the establishment subcommittee and then the finance committee. Perhaps we can have further discussion in the establishment subcommittee. The questions can be referred to the subcommittee for further discussion. Thank you, Secretary. Next agenda item is in relation to occupational safety and health.
咁我哋歡迎跟住係副處長同埋勞工處其他嘅同事嚇，唔該。
We have with us Deputy Commissioner for Labour and his team from the Labour Department.
咁今日同我哋討論嘅有
We have with us Mr. David Leung, Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Jimmy Chan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Works from the Development Bureau, and Mr. Lee Chi Leung, Assistant Commissioner for Labour, Occupational Safety. And also Mr. Leung Chun-ho, Chief Occupational Safety Officer. We don't have much time, so can you briefly take us through the paper? Yes, I'll only take a minute and a half. In the past decade, the number of occupational injuries and fatalities and industrial accidents are decreasing. The first half of this year, there is a drop of 5% compared to the same time last year. For food and catering, there is a drop by about 10%. When it comes to construction industry, since 2011, there has been an increase. Compared to last year, there is an increase by 8%. The first half of this year has seen an increase by 5% compared to the same time last year. When it comes to fatal accidents, there are altogether 22 cases in the construction industry, and it was 23 last year. The number of workers in the construction industry has seen a double-digit increase since 2011. As of the second quarter of this year, we have about 72,000 site workers, which is an increase by about 14.5%. Starting from 2011, the Labour Department has stepped up enforcement actions. We have issued suspension notices, and the number has increased by many times. And in relation to high-risk work, we have also mounted targeted actions. We have also enhanced the coverage and the content of occupational safety training. The Labour Department will also tackle the issue at source to put in place systematic measures to bring down the number of industrial accidents. There are a number of papers. So one is a reply to the FTU's question on professional drivers, and there is another submission from Hong Kong Workers' Health Centre. 5 minutes each. Wong Kok Hing, Leung Kok Hong, Pun Siu Ping, Leung Yiu Chung. I ask members' agreement to extend the meeting by 15 to 20 minutes. Members agree. Mr. Wong Kok Hing. I would like to raise the issue about occupational health and safety for professional drivers. When it comes to surveys and statistics, professional drivers have been left out. We are concerned about their occupational safety and health, and recently there has been a number of serious traffic accidents involving them. I hope that in future statistics, safety for professional drivers will see a dedicated survey done, just like one for the catering industry. The second question: does the department do random checks on the air quality on buses? I've received complaints from the sector that management wanted to save fuel. Drivers are instructed to turn off the fresh air vent, and in some cases it's not an instruction or order. The bus operator, in order to save fuel, the vent is simply duct taped or disabled. Well, for long-haul buses, passengers will enjoy good sleep because of a lack of fresh air. The driver may be drowsy. And under such circumstances, the driver is prone to doze off, and there may be traffic accidents. So I would like to ask, have you done any random check on the parts related to the vent, the air vent, to find out whether they have been closed? And as a result, there is no fresh air circulating on the bus. Bus drivers become drowsy when they're driving. 2 questions: survey and random checks. Statistics or survey on professional drivers. We've actually received a question from the member. We've given a reply. The Labour Department does not have breakdown on the information because we use statistics as a sector. Professional drivers may be working in different sectors. We will think about it. That is in relation to what Mr. Wong said. We've received some comments in relation to his strokes, and we will study that.
Please answer my second question. Now about air quality, about checking of it at the transport panel. Some members raised a similar question. For the Labour Department, so we have not done any survey about the fresh air duct openings. And after meeting with Mr. Wong or your colleagues, can provide us with more detailed information, we'll be glad to make certain arrangements to take action. Mr. Chairman, actually I do not need to provide you with any intelligence. Actually, I can tell you this fact directly here. So please investigate and do some survey about the various bus companies. It's about the running buses. It's true that the fresh air, the devices, or the fresh air openings are being blocked or closed. So please check that. And then please give an account of your investigation to LegCo, because it's about the health and the safety of people, the health of the drivers and the safety of the passengers. Will you follow up? Yes, I will follow up, Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Where you can use the CIA to investigate that. It's about intelligence. Why is it that we have this very inefficient thing? The FTOU is a union. The union has some sort of allegation. Then you can ask the management and the employers. If the employers say no, and then you can give an answer. Of course, if there's such a fact, then there will be a big problem with the employers. If there's no fresh air with the passengers, there will be a serious problem. People lack oxygen, then it's about illness. It's very serious. So you don't need to talk about intelligence. If they really lie, then you can check it out easily, because we do not need to resort to the CIA. Now we talk about accidents. I can look at your figures. Yes, the figures have improved a lot. Perhaps you think that I'll give you a bouquet, and not really. If you had listened to the unions more earlier, whether it's about FTU or the CTU or labor activists, if you had listened to them earlier, then the improvement of figures would have appeared earlier. Well, for the food and beverage service sector, you want to improve it, actually it's quite easy. But in the past, you said that for that kind of sector, you could not improve it. But I was involved in the construction sector. You can improve something. Actually, it's quite easy. You can have a safety officer. The safety officer is not hired by the intermediary, but it's privacy. It's not that satisfactory. But anyway, some people say that the labor activists are trying to cause trouble. Actually, we say something, then you do something, then you can improve it. It's quite easy. So it's just natural. It's not something unexpected. Now, in the system, there are things which have happened all the time. And some of the practices are detrimental to the workers in terms of health, etc. Well, if that is not accident, if that is something natural, then nobody will be concerned about that, because you do not have a headline news, okay? But if there are work injuries, then there is a problem. So for the jockey club, the telephone operator is having a heavy workload, but the jockey club is trying to fire people. So there is something natural, you can say, that is expected. For this sort of statistics, are you talking about something that is expected or unexpected? Okay, a person really looks unto his death. It's not TV melodrama. Perhaps a person suddenly dies in harness or during working. Or if a person has work pressure and he jumps to his death, is it expected or unexpected? But how about in the workplace? A person suddenly dies, is it expected or unexpected? What's your comment? Do you have any statistics? See, if they pass away, is this expected or unexpected? Well, it's very hard to say, but look at the individual cases. I can cite an example. To cut it short, you can check the operator case in the jockey club. Okay, the people worked underground The air quality was poor. The working hours were long. A lot of people had lodged complaints. I'm frustrated. The Jockey Club is charitable, okay? The gamblers contribute their money, and the Jockey Club is trying to do something charitable. But how about dealing with their own workers? You really can't do that to workers. Will you investigate? I don't have intelligence. There are a lot of complaints. Will you investigate? Will you have the opportunity to handle this matter? I can meet you. If I can go to your office, I can bring along certain people. Because certain people are afraid that they are being fired. Will you investigate? Now, Mr. Leung, tomorrow there is an oral question about Jockey Club, about the concerned problem. How about the Deputy Commissioner can answer you? Will you investigate? I'd like to thank Mr. Leung for the information. Now, normally speaking, if there is a fatality case, according to the procedures in Hong Kong, first of all, the police will investigate. Well, unless it's natural death, normally speaking, there will be a coroner's inquest. For deaths at workplaces, the Labour Department will also go to check the workplaces. I would like to thank Mr. Leung for his work. Yes, I will give you intelligence. I am the CIA. Okay. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Thank you. Safety is our concern, the concern of the unions. Looking at the paper, it seems that the figures have dropped slightly, but for the construction industry is worrying. And recently, there have been a lot of industrial accidents. The Hong Kong, Zhuhai, Macau bridge accident was very, very serious. Now, a related issue. The paper talks about monitoring the work, and of course, Annex 4 talks about the pre-warning system of the Development Bureau. If the accidents of the contracts rise, then your directorate officers will meet the contractors, so that they have to give a report. For building the airport, we had major infrastructure projects, and the workers said that the government was attached much importance to industrial safety. Apart from inspections, there was much monitoring, and the contractors had to adhere to strict regimes. Now you have this new system. I'm not sure about the effectiveness. Perhaps the officials can answer that. Another related issue is about inclement weather and the impact on the workers, like typhoons or hot weather. In the past, for this sort of figures, of course, the A&E department of hospitals will increase these sort of figures in terms of industrial accident victims. We only got simple figures. I think the administration should really do something during inclement weather to compile more statistics about industrial accident victims so that we can reduce the accidents. Deputy Commissioner, about mega infrastructure projects, Mr. Jimmy Chan of the Development Bureau can answer that. Now about inclement weather, about hot weather, for example. During hot weather, actually from last year, actually from 2 years ago, during summer, we have had special operations to deal with heat strokes. Say last year, we inspected 28,000 times, about 30,000 times this year. Now last year, there were a lot of cases concerning heat strokes, say in the construction sites, outdoor cleaning work, or public buses. So last year, with our efforts, this year, with heat stroke cases reported, the number has dropped by 25%, about 10 or more cases, but last year there were over 20 cases. Now this year, We had 30,000 inspections, and we can see that for the construction sites, the measures against the heat strokes have been improved. So they have shooting shelters, and also there is better ventilation. Mr. Chairman, actually we have previously reported for power fixes. They have a 15-minute break during the morning, during the summer months. Now from 15 sites to 30 sites in terms of participating in this present. Now for the bar fixers association, with the related people, they say that for the next 3 years, for this short break, it will be written into the memorandum for negotiations of wages. So we don't have pilot schemes in future. So in the morning, for the bar fixers, they will have a small break. For mega infrastructure projects, Mr. Chen can elaborate on that. Now, Mr. Poon talks about safety monitoring, which we have done something on this. Now, all along, concerning public works contracts, we have had monitoring measures. Say the contractor, before work starts, has to have a safety plan. The content includes 14 components: the policies, the structures, the framework, and before work starts, there should be risk assessment, etc. About monitoring, the paper says that the directorate officers will do something. We discovered that the contractor is such that the accident rates rising, then we'll do something. Actually, every month we'll receive figures concerning the public work contracts within 3 months. We can see the figures of the accidents, and we can see the trend. If the trend is rising, then the directorate officer will meet the contractor, the management of the contractor, and the aim is to do some prevention.
We aim to prevent or identify potential hazards in sites and require preventative measures to be put in place. There are requirements in the contract setting out a monitoring system. Every week, supervising engineers or contractors will conduct a site inspection. Every month, a safety management meeting will be convened with the contractor. The safety situation is reviewed. Safety issues can be raised. Proposed measures can be put in place. We understand that if we are to achieve the most out of it, there needs to be a regulatory system. After 2010, as we knew that there will be a lot of mega infrastructure projects, we put in place a measure, a requirement of the contractors that the supervising engineers will have to attend a course of safety supervisors, so that because this group will be responsible for safety supervision, they will be made aware on issues as to how safety can be improved. Starting from 1998, accident rate per 1,000 workers is 51. And last year, 2011, when it comes to public works, it's dropped to 9 cases. Well, I think, we're running out of time. You have to be quick. So all in all, when it comes to public works, the accident rate compared to that of the sector is on the low side. There are 3 members, Lang Yew Chung, Shin Chung Kai, Kwok Ka Ki. I think we'll have to overrun past 7:15. Mr. Lang Yew Chung. Well, although the figure has dropped, but we're talking about over 40,000 accidents. Now, the definition of industrial accident is the case that they can not work for at least 3 days, and that's an indication of the severity of the injury. And we feel sad about people who died because they have given their lives for society's development, and that should be more done to ensure safety, to prevent industrial accident. But I'm afraid the figure itself may not be true. Why did I say that? We've heard from people from the insurance sectors that a lot of the insurance undertakers are reluctant to underwrite such policies. And whenever there is a report, premium will be increased. So employers will be very concerned, and they ask their employees not to report an accident. So I'm concerned. How much of the truth has the figures reflected, and are the employees appropriately compensated? Because they may be threatened with employment termination should they report it. How do you address this problem? I'm sure you've heard it. Accident policies are getting more and more difficult to be taken out. Premiums are increasing. So people suffering from accidents are not appropriately compensated. How do you address this? About accidents that are not reported. Yes, from time to time we hear something like this, and every time we hear it, we will take it seriously. If contractors or employers, in order to avoid an increase in premium, ask the employee not to report an accident, the employer has committed a criminal offense, subject to not just a fine, but imprisonment as well. It seems that we have heard this from time to time in relation to the construction industry. We sent a letter to the Construction Industry Council, asking them if they will compile guidelines for contractors. Let me give you an example. Last year, scaffolding is facing that problem. The premium has been increased, and people from the sector told me that if it keeps increasing, they will not take up any policies. And in June this year, the Labour Department launched a star scheme for the scaffolding industry. And if they participate in the scheme and they've been accredited, they will be given as stated as a star enterprise. Under the insurance scheme, if they have obtained the status of the star enterprise, that is in relation to the employees' compensation insurance residual scheme, they will enjoy a 40% discount in premium if they are accredited. I heard that every year they can save about $350,000 to $500,000. This is a financial incentive to $300,000 to $600,000. This will be a financial incentive for them to take out insurance policy. Next year, when this scheme is more mature, we will be able to see how effective it is. Or they just name the premium, and after this 50% discount, it's $100,000. After a 50% discount, it's still $50,000. I don't know. Do you know what reasons there are to explain the decrease in the number of accidents? Well, I think what Mr. Leung is saying is that you should seriously address this issue about non-reporting. Mr. Chin Chung Kai. Just now, Mr. Wong talked about a separate survey for professional drivers, and we're not just talking about health and safety for drivers, because since it will have an impact on pedestrian and other road users as well. I know that it is difficult to prove the health of drivers, but recently we have seen some horrid cases involving professional drivers. We know that there are additional requirements if you're a driver and if you're over 70 years old, but the drivers involved in these accidents are not over 70 years old. So in relation to the potential threats to other road users, what solutions do you have to address this issue? When we attended a meeting or a panel on transport, a member raised a question. We were asked if we would consider expanding the scope of occupational safety and health. We said we would take this into consideration, and we will consider the report of the police and decide whether we will include it. The Transport and Housing Bureau said that they will see if there needs to be any tightening on the requirements of health checks and whether working hours should be shortened. The Labour Department, from the perspective of occupational health and safety, would like to put in place some preventative measures. If there are irregularities spotted in a health check, it may be too late, because the driver may not be able to keep his job. We now have a scheme in place. We're discussing with bus operators. Doctors from the Occupational Safety and Health Council are working on a scheme on healthy lifestyle. Professionals will give advice to professional drivers to help them to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Professional drivers, through the scheme, will form a habit that is healthy. But it's not just about warning, advising drivers. Some drivers are self-employed. There are some drivers who are employed by a company. Maybe it's an important issue to inject a healthy way of living in terms of their work condition. Say, for example, when it comes to tram drivers, bus drivers, or minibus drivers, they all are employed. How can you maybe formulate some kind of guidelines with these operators? Can enterprises participate? Thank you, Mr. Shin. In relation to the healthy lifestyle program, it's a two-pronged approach. We approach labor union to ask them to find us participants, and they include self-employed drivers. And through companies, say bus operators, we ask the drivers to participate in this program. No, that's not what I mean. Can you lean on the or influence the bus drivers so that they will revise their guidelines to incorporate the aspect of healthy living? Can you maybe audit their work guidance or guidelines? That, to be frank, that is not part of our plan, but we will consider it. It's a very good proposal, because sometimes you will have to get in from the perspective of companies. Dr. Kokaki, sorry, I went to another meeting. In 2002, about the number of occupational injuries is dropped from 47,023 to 40,578, a drop of 13.7%. For leave resulting from injuries, say for example more than 4 days, are they included here? Under 4 days, are they included? No, it only includes leave over 3 days. Well, I think it's faking it. In the past, when you're injured and as a result on sick leave, it doesn't really matter, and the number of days you've taken off, they are included. But now they will exclude leave that is under 3 days long. And of course, as a result, the figure is low. I hope the administration will refrain from using such approach to give society a misunderstanding that the number of injuries and fatalities has dropped. I hope that our figures will not be like those on the mainland. The administration should revise its approach. If it is an injury, an industrial accident, or if it is occupational injury, the statistics should not be fiddled, because these statistics will only give us information about the situation. And we're talking about a 9-year period, and still we have over 40,000 occupational injuries. We should be punished because we are an international cities, and we still have a high number, over 40,000 injuries.
For the blue-collar workers, for the manufacturing industries, well, these industries have been dwindling in Hong Kong. For factories and the industrial undertakings or ordinance, or for different types of factory work, we still have a figure of more than 40,000. It is really not progress. And about the fatal accidents, for many major construction work sites, we still have fatal accidents. How will the government take action? There should be clear penalties, say for certain contractors, for certain construction companies. In the past, they could not reduce the accidents, especially fatalities. Should the government take action, for example, scrapping the bidding qualifications, or perhaps they do some improvement and then they can again have qualifications for bidding, for tenders. Otherwise, fatalities are just fatalities, and you're really not doing anything. So in the public works projects, we have countermeasures so that the contractors should really be urged to take action. Ms. Leung or Mr. Chen, just 1 minute left. I'd like to thank Mr. Kwok for the question about public works projects, penalty. Mr. Chen can answer that. I can answer the first question. 3 days or more, is it a kind of making up? No, it's not a make-up. It's in reference to the Employees' Compensation Ordinance about reporting over 3 days. This has been a standard which has been used for a few decades. We changed the criterion. Then we have to explain it clearly in writing to members. But this criterion has not been changed for decades, so we're using the same yardstick in dealing with occupational safety and health. But Mr. Kwok's question is asking about the question of 3 days. It's true that the situation is not that serious in terms of the picture. It's just how to draw the line, and Mr. Chen can elaborate on that. Yes, about penalty, about the fatal accidents. Yes, about contractors which have unsatisfactory performance about safety. Now, firstly, in terms of bidding, we refer to the past safety records of the contractor. We look at the past performance of the contractor. In terms of safety, this will be counted towards the technical score. If the safety record is poor, then the score will be low. And secondly, Mr. Kwok mentioned another point. We talk about serious accidents or fatal accidents. And for public works system at present, whenever there is a fatality or contractors which have a lot of industrial accidents, then we actually open up a committee to investigate. If we discover that the reasons for the accidents are related to the contractors, we'll impose some sanctions. The serious scenario is that the contractor cannot bid for government tenders for the time being. The longest period is 12 months. So after that period, the contractor has to do some safety assessment so that we are satisfied, and then they can regain the qualification for bidding. So for serious accidents or fatalities, actually these sort of things have a direct impact on the contractor. Perhaps after the meeting, you can give us the figures, but how many people have used the mechanism for the past 5 years? 46 contractors went through this mechanism, and they were sanctioned, and they were suspended from bidding. Yes, please give us a written answer. Perhaps other mechanisms, etc. So for the whole picture of a sanction, please give us some statistics in writing. Mr. Tommy Cheung, a very quick question. For the industrial accidents for food and beverage sector, the figures can rise, but the cases are minor. About 15,000, 16,000, perhaps in the year 2000. We didn't have so many workers at that time. So per 1,000 workers, they have this figure. I think it's quite accurate. I don't want to comment on that. So it's kind of a comparison. Now for service sector, actually the figures are being reduced. I don't want to be complacent. Industrial safety activities, promotional activities, usually I will take part, even though I'm very busy. But the workers injured, you have to pay. So it's bad for the employers, and then you also lose certain workers. Now quickly, actually I share your views, Mr. Chairman. Well, but there's one issue. It's about the labor insurance. Talk about rentals. We have the minimum wage. Now the insurance companies are trying to crack down on us. Okay, 5 or 6 times. I received cases which have not been subjects of claims. Still, the premium is a few times more. It's outrageous. They're saying that they are running in the red. I don't believe it. And they give us the accounts. I'm not sure what the general managers get in dividends, etc. for the catering industry, talking about 200,000 people. Why is it that they run in a deficit? The construction industry was in a deficit, and then we share the burden. But now they say that our industry has a problem. But actually, our situation is now separated from the construction industry. Different industries try to tie in with industrial safety. If there are safety activities, usually I'll take part. I'll encourage people to take part in these sort of activities. For labor insurance, I think the administration should think about that. I think the Labor Department should not simply prosecute people promptly. The catering industry people want to take out insurance, but sometimes they cannot find any avenue. If you always prosecute people, they will be imprisoned. It's very bad. They want to take out insurance, but nobody offers a service to them. Mr. TIEN Puk doesn't have much to talk to me because I don't know what to do with insurance. So at least I can talk with you, okay? It's about safety. And Mr. Tommy Cheung said that you don't have the answer. Now, by the administration, you raised a question for industrial accidents. If the figures are lower, why is it that for insurance, the premium is 5 or 6 times more? If there are many claims, then perhaps they have to pay more. But the figures here and the figures are correct. 5 or 6 times. This is outrageous. 2012 first half year compared with 2011 is 3,063 is dropping. So I see that the premium is increasing. Now, Deputy Commissioner, I think it's not the portfolio, it's not safety, but perhaps you have to talk to the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance. Why is it that the premiums are so high? Now, tomorrow we have a question on this. 2 to 3 times, actually people think it's not that shocking. Question 6 tomorrow, you can ask a question. Deputy Commissioner, please follow up on that. Last question. Now, some people say that to avoid paying insurance premium, some people do not report accidents. They want to evade the premium, or they want to evade the sanctions from the works departments. Just now you mentioned works contracts. Of course, the safety performance perhaps is better because there's a good system. But the works departments have to impose sanctions, and the insurance premiums have to rise. That's why people have the incentive not to report. Do you think that this trend is rising? And secondly, people do not report accidents. Will you impose greater penalties because of this, including works contracts? You have to talk to the judge that this is very serious. We do not penalize people. People really refrain from doing the reporting. If they resolve the problem with the insurance companies, that's a separate issue. But if they do not report accidents, please do something about it. Mr. Chairman, as I answered another member, if they do not report accidents, it's a serious problem. And we hear about these sort of things. The Labor Department will issue strict reminders, and we'll clarify this. Now, recently, about the construction industry, about the allegations of this in the industry, we have formally written to the construction industry association, etc., so that they can remind the contractors. Now, for the works departments, actually, they have close liaison with the labor departments. If people want to do something outside the law, it's not so easy. But we have a lot of prosecutions about this. I don't have information at hand. But in the past, we have had prosecutions. Please give us the figures of prosecutions to see if there is a rise in prosecutions. And for works contracts, accident rate is one thing, safety performance is another thing. But if they do not report accidents, perhaps one of the factors, this is one of the factors which can be considered. But if they do not report accidents, and if they are prosecuted by the labor departments, if it's about prosecution concerning safety in the process, they will affect the opportunities for bidding for tenders, and this will affect the performance, because every quarter the contractors will do an assessment. Okay, we'll follow up on the insurance in future. Perhaps the Manpower panel, perhaps the financial services panel can jointly pay regard to this. Perhaps we'll liaise with Mr. Tommy Cheung to see if we can have a joint panel meeting. And we hope that the administration can really do more studies about why the premiums rise so quickly, so drastically. Okay, we'll wrap up discussion. Thank you.